Birmingham, Alabama, 1963. Some of the most iconic images of the civil rights movement came from the protests in Birmingham, Alabama. And you can see here the picture of this young man, if I remember right, was a 19-year-old young man participating. And many of these people that participated in these protests were young. There were children, there were women in these crowds. Tended to be a very young movement. These protesters, what we're talking about here is people simply marching out of protest. It wasn't as if they're going through town, breaking windows, turning cars over. This was not a riot. This was a protest. Unfortunately, Birmingham was considered as one of the most racist, segregated cities in the South. And so that's why the civil rights leaders looked to Birmingham and said, this is where we need to go to have our protest. There was a public safety commissioner, very famous. His name was Bull Connor, very much a segregationist, very much a racist. During the protests in 1963, hundreds of the demonstrators were fined and imprisoned. When the jails were full, the police commissioner, the public safety commissioner, he was in charge of the police as well as the fire department as a commissioner. He told the police, turn the attack dogs on the protesters and disperse the crowds, stop them from protesting. He also told the fire department, turn the fire hoses on the protesters to stop them from protesting. Images were broadcast across the country. They helped the civil rights movement gain sympathy. People who hadn't been paying attention to the civil rights movement saw a very one-sided fight, that people peacefully protesting were being attacked, not by mobs, but by policemen and by firemen. It seemed exactly opposite of what people expected to see. It did help the civil rights movement.
In 1963, under orders by City Commissioner Eugene Bull Connor, Birmingham, Alabama City Police used fire hoses and police dogs against children and adults engaged in nonviolent protests against segregation. The demonstrations were part of Martin Luther King Jr.'s Birmingham campaign. Television news coverage of the attacks by police sparked mass nationwide protests.